that Jess and Lulu together. Cute. Yay. Hi, Faye.
Come to your river. I will come to your river. I will come to your river. Come to your river.
While we're waiting for more ladies to arrive to class tonight, I invite you to drop into yourself. Maybe if you can hear the music, closing your eyes, maybe feeling the music a little bit. This is an Oshun song about Oshun, who's the goddess we're going to work with tonight. So just like, I don't know, just getting into your pleasure and feeling how it feels in your body right now. With your eyes closed, just so you drop in. Maybe feeling what's happening in your pelvis.
Come to your river.
How about dropping that cord and feeling that the energy that's coming up through that cord just wants to dance through you. That energy that we draw up through the cord in our Shakti practice, that is her. That is the divine feminine energy. So just see if you can kind of invite her into your body and listen to how she wants to move. And with your eyes closed, we'll do 3 ma chants together. So inhaling. From the heart. And taking a moment with your eyes closed just to notice how you feel right now. Notice any sensation. Notice if you feel the sound vibration having an effect on you. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Come into this space, into the circle with us. Welcome, ladies. So, we had our first week with the sensual goddess. Just realized that. And I'm really curious to know how it's been for you all. So before we dive into our second sensual goddess, I would love to hear how Aphrodite has been dancing with you. And I really appreciated, I mentioned that Venus is retrograde last week. And I loved, I don't know how many of you saw it, but Morgan, who knows quite a bit about astrology, wrote a little bit and shared on our Facebook group about what that means and how in some ways it's perfect. But it implies that it's a time to reflect and do some inner work with this aspect of ourselves. And so I'm really curious to hear how it's been. And I would love to hear from someone who hasn't shared so much yet. And Megan, we haven't heard from you. I would love to.
Hi.
Hi, Megan.
Well, I emailed you a little bit about what's been going on and how I missed a couple of classes.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't see that
oh
actually.
no, it's okay because I emailed you like an hour and a half ago,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah, I
yeah,
was.
yeah, I figured you'd be busy. But what's interesting is as I watched the playbacks, a lot of what you were talking about I had been experiencing. And so I haven't seen last week's class yet, but I have been coming into that aspect of myself. I think you had brought up bringing fruit next time. And so I have fruit with me today as well. I've got some medjool dates and some tahini. And I've just been dancing. Today actually was the first time I felt ready to get into that space, like really in my body. And so yeah, I've been enjoying that and dancing and moving my hips and needing to move them more.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love how, sometimes it's like being in this course really is stepping into a vortex. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really interesting how women, even if sometimes if you haven't seen the class, like you said, Megan, uh, it's like the influence is already there. It's happening in your life. Like you're in the circle of the energy.
Yeah.
And, so I'm really happy to hear how, even though you've fallen behind, and I look forward to reading your email and understand more, as far as watching the classes, that you're feeling that you are kind of moving along in alignment. And I love hearing that you're dancing, because that's always a sign for me personally. It's like, oh, the dance is back.
Yes.
It's like she's here. Oh, that part of me is alive again.
Yeah.
I wish that for you all, to like really just feel that desire to move into dance.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. All right. Well, it's good to see your face and
It's good to
hear
be
your
here.
voice. Yeah, I'm
Hi,
glad you're here with
everybody.
us live.
Yeah.
Great. Let me see who else hasn't really shared with us yet. Let's see. Um, Sumi, do you want to share? Let me unmute you.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've heard you
Oh,
perfect.
great. But yeah, thanks, and hi, everybody. So really, I don't think that I've been flourishing this past week, if I'm really honest with myself in terms of prioritizing, like setting aside time, just to like experience pleasure. So I feel kind of disappointed actually, because I had thought of things that I wanted to try and do daily, and here I am 7 days later. And I really didn't give myself that time that I wanted to. And I've done little things here and there, like um, doing a bath, which has become a pleasurable thing for me, and even just continuing to eat the leftover chocolate from last week, and it's something that usually I don't have a huge sweet tooth, but just something that I find pleasurable, but I think it's been a struggle for me actually. So I don't know.
Well, thank you for being, really honest and sharing what's been going on for you. And I know I'm going to have a session with you tomorrow. Well,
Yeah.
Cindy and I are also, we're doing some of the private sessions. And I'll mention that again for anyone else that's interested in that, where you get some extra support and get to go in a little more deeply. So I'm sure we'll get to kind of go in there and look in more detail tomorrow. But what I want to say is I'm sure that you're not the only one who feels like she didn't dive in as much as you would have liked into the pleasure. And I want to encourage you not to beat yourself up about it,
Okay.
and to know that we still have more time. We're not, we have a few more weeks with this aspect of the feminine, and to just really encourage you to, you said prioritize, like to really prioritize that, and to know that sometimes it doesn't even have to be that much time. and that there are moments. One of the things I want to say, like even when you're really busy, that there are moments when you can drop in, like I know you're in New York, so you're probably not driving as much. Like here in LA, like I drive, and sometimes it's like while I'm driving, I will use that time to like do some Shakti breathing and like do some pelvic, like twisting and turning and moving with the Shakti and listening to music. Being on the subway, that might be a little distracting for people. So that might not be as advised, but at your desk at work, for example, or, just finding those hidden moments that aren't even supposed to be pleasure moments and seeing if you can bring the pleasure in. Because I know that sometimes logistically, we just have a really packed schedule and it can be like a week that's just more challenging. And, so just knowing like, oh, how can I weave that pleasure thread into moments that aren't even supposed to be necessarily pleasurable? Or where can I just find a few stolen moments and like, at a desk, like keep essential oils so that you can, inhale like just a breath of, a moment of just taking a breath of an essential oil can be a way to bring you into some of that pleasure sensation and without taking much time. So I want to just encourage you around finding those times. And we can hear from one more. I would love to actually hear from Morgan. Oh, I see a hand up. Okay, Sarah has her hand up. So we're going to come to her. She's got her hand up. Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, share.
So I actually went to a wedding on Saturday. So I feel like that alone kind of set me up for some really fun moments. I got a mani-pedi. Wonderful. I don't often do that. And, I got to dress up sexy and I had a great time on dancing on the dance floor, had some really good sexy dancing with my husband, and then also with this group of incredible badass women there that I just am so fortunate to be friends with. And one of my favorite things this week, I moved from San Francisco in May, and the wedding was in San Francisco, so we were back there for the first time. And I was walking around the neighborhood and I caught this whiff of some jasmine. And that has always been one of my favorite things about that city, is that it grows everywhere and you smell it frequently without seeing it, because a lot of times it's in the backyards. So I took myself on a walk one afternoon until I actually found some, and then just picked a whole bunch of it and just realized like flowers are really important to me. It's a really special little treat to have, and especially such beautiful fragrant ones like jasmine. So it's been a really fun week, and I'm looking forward to, now that I'm back home, not having that built-in wedding event that made things so easy to do, but to just look forward to inserting some more pleasurable moments throughout my days. So yeah, it was great.
Gorgeous. I can really feel the sensual goddess like moving through you, especially when you speak about the jasmine. And yeah, flowers, like, oh, I'm a big fan, like always having flowers around, and especially, fragrant ones like that. That's just like an invitation. It's like, that's like Aphrodite on a vine, like kind of calling, coaxing you in, like come into your senses, sister. Yeah. So beautiful. Is there anyone else who actually really wants to share? I've been trying to pull out people who who don't normally share, but I want to. Yeah, I see Natalia's got her hand up.
Oh.
Hi.
I don't know. Is there a button for raising hands, or do you have to?
You know what? I actually don't think there is. So I just sort of look around. So if you put your hand up, I like that. It's kind of old-fashioned way. Like, put your hand up.
So So it's been an interesting week. I also did struggle a little bit with finding time, but I think I'm also a little bit hard on myself because I made a list that was just a little bit ridiculous. So, but the essential oils is something that I can do. So that was great. That was made me feel better because at least there's always that, just in case I didn't do anything else, because I wear it as a perfume. So, okay. Anyway, so um, I went and found Concord grapes, which is my favorite thing. And since they were around, I was able to have those a bunch, and that was awesome. And I actually decided to start paying more attention to my space. And even though it's, I feel like I've worked on it a lot over the years, for some reason it's just started looking like a dorm room again to me. And even though it's changed a lot, it still looks it looks like a dorm room. So I went looking for fabrics, and my mom helped, and she just happens to have a storehouse of too much stuff. So she ended up having all of these incredible fabrics from materials from the arts for like years ago. Beautiful, like brocade, like with gold shot through it, blues, and like it's just beautiful. So I basically redoing my cushions, like making curtains, putting slip covers over baker's racks so I don't have to see the stuff on the shelves, like really kind of overhauling the space to make it palatial. Like I was like, I want my place to look like a palace. She's like, that's a good idea. So we're like doing that. So it's chaos right now, but I know I can see like where it's going. I'm minimizing the amount of junk that's in here and covering things. So that's been really exciting. A little bit stressful, but exciting. So I've made sure to like read Dear Lover, which was pretty incredible. That's been awesome. That book that you recommended.
Is anyone else reading it? Put your hand up if you have been reading it. No one else.
It's worth it. That's something. That's totally something, Sumi. This is huge, because it's almost like I'm almost uncomfortable reading it sometimes, like some private. Anyway, so yeah, and I fixed my altar. I bought some peacock feathers to put on there. So I've been trying to find something, and then one day I didn't do anything. I got M&Ms. That made me happy. I never have chocolate, so that was so it's been good. And I did something pretty naughty. I sent a video. My boyfriend calls it an art video, but I sent a video to him because I hadn't seen him for a few days, and it was a very risque video, and that was fun.
Awesome. Yes.
So yeah, it's been good. It's been I'm glad to be able to tap into it and make it a priority without feeling like I'm not being constructive with my time, So thank you.
Beautiful. Great. Anyone else want to share? Anyone else have something there? Faye. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Faye.
Well, I will say that I came into this course, and this was the part I was looking forward to the most because when I did it the first time, I think it's the part I struggled with the most, and I think even after we switched into the other parts, I felt like I should still be working on it. And so coming into this is the part I most embraced, and for reasons that I can't even tell you. Like I don't even know why. During the class last week, I was just super on. And I mean, like, I can't even explain it. I was turned on, I was energy on, I was just by the end of the class, I was just completely on. I could not even describe it. So I went almost into super mode, like with pleasure this week. And I mean that from like, I remember the first time I did it, I was more focused on pleasure, like stuff I can eat and stuff I can drink and stuff like that. And like one thing I've been doing, and this is like a ridiculous, silly thing, but I get to work early in the morning, every single morning. I'm usually the first person in the office. And this entire week, I've been the first person in the office, and I put on a song I like, and there's nobody else there, and I dance. Just so when you were saying dance, I'm like, I've danced every single day this week.
Mm.
But also, like, I went for a swim for myself. I also got a manicure and pedicure, and then I went boxing because I love boxing. So I put on my gloves with my manicure, and I was like, yeah, it just felt amazing. And I know I don't know, maybe it's more warrior goddess, but it felt like good for my body, and I had a great time just doing that. So I feel like I want to keep doing this every day for the entire Central Goddess section, just because I needed it. And I don't know, I think in the class last week, just what everybody was saying, I was like, this energy was just coming at me, and I just took this week just to let it all out. So
Mm.
that was my week.
I absolutely love this dancing, getting into the office before anyone's there and dancing, because it's like exactly what I was kind of saying a moment ago, like find places where pleasure is not supposed to happen and bring her there. And how does your life shift when you do that? Because it's like the office, getting into work early in the morning, the image that we have in our mind and the image that our culture repeats to us all the time is you're kind of there, you can barely have your eyes open, you're trying to get a cup of coffee, like, oh, I'm here at my job. That's like that's sort of what we think of and associate with work. And for you to be there, and it's like, I have to say honestly too, like probably everyone that you work with was benefiting from that all week, because when you go in and it's like you're sanctifying the space with your pleasure energy by dancing around, it's literally like, and just the way you're describing the turn on that you felt like from the class last week, I feel like I'm just getting a sense that was channeling through you while you were dancing.
I mean, just to give you guys an idea,
Huh?
like my ex called me and asked me if I joined a dating app, which I didn't. But he said like he could hear happiness in my voice because we spoke for some business thing last week, and like two people have said that, like, have you have you joined something? What are you doing? Like, you sound just excited. And I'm telling you, like last week, that all that just came into me. I just can't describe it. I'm telling you, by the end of the class last week, I just almost couldn't sit still. It's just so very good.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's like, I love that people are saying it's sort of like, oh, are you getting some action? Like what, the idea that it's got to be like kind of romance from the outside, and the whole, like really the whole message of Aphrodite and of the sensual goddess is that we have that within ourselves. And when we bring that everywhere, we attract more of that. But we don't need to get it from out there. That's something that's self-sourced, this level of pleasure. And I just see you like going into the office and literally your pleasure energy kind of setting pleasure and joy actually in the energetics of that workspace, and like transmuting that energy. Huh?
Yeah. It's interesting because we have closed more deals this week than we've closed in like the last month. Maybe I did.
Yes, yes.
I didn't even think about that, but seriously, we really have. Like this morning, I was dancing in rumba, and we won this huge deal today, and I'm like, yeah, thanks, Jen. But seriously, I'm telling you, this is what happened this week. Like this morning, I was like, when the rumba rhythm starts to play, dance with me, play with me, and I was just in the moment. I'm telling you, it was really good week.
Oh, I love it. I love that you closed all these deals in your office this week. It's not a surprise. That is not random. That is, and we're going to, Jen just put in the chat, go girl. Yes. Because we're going to talk about Oshun today, and she starts to get us into really speaking about the like the sort of abundance and prosperity and like this sort of gold magnetism that the sensual goddess has. And next week we'll talk about Lakshmi. But when we bring this energy to anything that we do, it makes it magnetic. It makes us on fire, and it attracts, like closing the deal, making money, like all of that happens when we bring that. So I just, I love that so much. And I feel like I could see on the faces of all the other women, because, I the way I set up the view right now, I can see everyone, that was landing, right? You're all going, oh, wait, how can I apply that in my life? Because, think about that, like whatever projects you're working on or workspaces you're going to or whatever's coming up, to like bring your dance to it, bring your pleasure. I love it. I love the Roomba. I love it all. It's amazing. Great. Delicious. Delicious. Who else wants to share? I'm loving these shares. Who else? Anyone else want to share? Lulu, did you want to share? Or Jess?
I was like, what did I do? But then all these things came into my memory that I bought myself a dozen fuchsia colored roses, and I put some in my love corner and some in my office, and then I'd tear one of them off and throw them in my bath every night. I've been taking baths every night with essential oils and bubble bath and singing a whole lot. And I have been creating a lot, and I went out to my husband's garage and grabbed a big piece of wood, and I just got on the ground with colored pencils and an entire piece of art, and had him taking down these pictures that don't resonate with me. I was like, I'm just going to create something. So it was just this beautiful picture of all my favorite flowers. And I just drew it from left to right, and my hand was aching the next day because I must have spent like 6 hours working on it. But it felt so good to be in that creative flow and painting, just drawing something that was beautiful and listening to music and just whatever, like lots of things. It's just every day seems more filled with pleasure, and it's just coming more naturally to do it. And inviting my husband into it, and just not letting anything get to me, most importantly. Beautiful. Like being so filled with pleasure that nothing can really bring me out of it.
Yeah. Gorgeous. So I love that you're speaking about creating art. So dancing is like a big part of the sensual goddess. So it's creating art, and really like her realm is doing things that don't make sense, like things that don't have things that don't have a purpose. Right? So we're so used to being socialized to be purpose oriented. And so we don't prioritize pleasure because I have all these important things to do. And where can I fit that in? I have all these like purpose driven things to do. And dancing, playing, and, slowly enjoying flowers or chocolate, making art are all things that don't kind of add up on the logic of like being productive. And that's the space where she dances. That's the space where she is alive, and understanding that when we do the things that are kind of illogical, the things that don't have a purpose, the things that maybe don't make sense, that's where we become alive. That's where we become magnetic. And that is kind of like a superpower that, it kind of trumps, I hate that word now, but it trumps.
I know.
Right? It's like I don't want to use it for something positive. But it is overrides. Or I was going to say what it does is it overrides. It's more powerful than the logic-driven way of getting to things, if that makes sense, right?
It does. You know what it reminds me of? My husband came in, and he's like, man, you've been working on that all day. And I was like, yes, and I love it.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah.
What did you say? I was like, yeah. My husband was like, you've been working on that thing all day. And I was like, yeah. And I'm so happy. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it brings you joy. It brings you pleasure. And I find that in general, good things will flow to us when we're in that space. So it's like, if you have your own business, it's kind of like, that's when you're dancing in that space and you're emanating that energy and you're in your joy. That's usually when clients will come to you. And it's illogical. Like sometimes it's because they see you and they're attracted to your joy. But sometimes it's like, there's no, 1 + 1. It's just sort of energetically, it's in the field. And that's when the deals are being closed. That's when the clients are coming. That's when, good things just start to flow to you from that space. So beautiful, like prioritize these things that don't have a purpose.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I won an Instagram picture of a warrior goddess painting.
Amazing.
I know. I won it. It was like so incredible. And it's this beautiful goddess. And I got to go on to the whole gallery and pick the one goddess that I resonated with the most. And it came in the mail today.
Oh, wow. Wow. Will you show us later?
Yeah,
Maybe later?
I'll grab her. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I saw Morgan has her hand up too, and she's someone we haven't heard from yet, and I would love to hear from Morgan. Here you are. Hi, Morgan.
Hi. So first of all these shares are so inspiring, and after what you last said, Amanda, about purpose versus like passion and prioritizing like pleasure and things like that, I actually, this past week was the first week I struggled with like filling an assignment. I was traveling like for a wedding, and was gone for days out of the just like, but I read something today on Instagram actually that said, try exchanging I don't have time for something with something's not a priority in my life. And I'm like thinking, well, maybe I'm not prioritizing pleasure enough. I think that like I'm like very purpose driven. I work like all the time, like really hard, and like I don't really give myself that. So like this class just kind of like woke me up to that a little bit. But also, I mean, I have been like continuing with some practices, like the morning embodiment practice. And even since like after the first class that we all did, I was super called to dance. And so I would just put like super like spicy music that I could like shake my hips and my ass to. And I would like dance around my apartment naked and like, just like really feeling myself and like come into my body. Cause I thought that was like the whole purpose of it. It was just like being in your body, which is also super new for me. And I noticed something at the wedding actually, and it's always, it's that's been super transformative also. But at the wedding, I noticed I was like super called to just like dance and like not give a fuck and just like have so much, you know what I mean? And usually I would be very like self-aware, like I'm more of an introvert. I'm like very highly sensitive. Like I don't really like being in the spotlight so much. But like this past weekend, it was just like all about like whatever the fuck I wanted to do. And it was like this, like a new, like upgraded kind of version of myself, or just like this, like, it just felt super centered and super like in my power or whatnot. So I'm definitely like noticing a lot of effects from all of the work that we're doing. And I think that this coming week, I'm definitely going to prioritize the sensual goddess and, do that kind of work, especially now that I'm like home and centered and everything. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love all the dancing that's happening and this like kind of like surprising sense of like lack of self-consciousness, which is great. It's like I feel when we're lit up with that flame, that fire, that Shakti inside, it's like I feel like she just gives us permission to just really be in our own pleasure and not be thinking about what's happening outside and not be concerned with what kind of response we're going to get. We just get to sit and or not sit, but move and allow that to just be in us. So beautiful. All right. Let me make sure. How do I do this? Okay. Okay. All right. So Aphrodite's been doing her work with you all. And this evening, we are going to get to know Oshun. I heard Natalia shared that she put a peacock feather on her altar, and peacock feathers are associated with Oshun. So I wonder if that was a little nod for Oshun on your altar, Natalia. I want to show you some images of her to start, just to, kind of get your juices moving and get your kind of impression of her. So let me just do a little screen share here. Oops. Silly. Sorry, ladies. Technology. All right. Start share. Okay. All right. So Oshun is the African Yoruban Orisha or goddess of sensuality, magnetism, and also wealth. So I mentioned that we were going to start to see this connection between wealth, prosperity, abundance, and our sensuality with some of these goddesses. And you see her here just like dripping in gold. Yellow is her color. She always wears yellow fabric, yellow dresses, and loves to adorn herself. And you can see here she's actually looking at herself. She's holding up a mirror. So she always has this little golden mirror with her. There's just like, there's a certain level of self-awareness around her and her beauty and her adornment. And here's another image of her. And here she is with her peacock feathers. And there's a cornucopia that she's just sort of leaning upon with like gold coins coming out of it. And again, dressed in yellow and gold. And here is another one where you see her slightly out of focus with her mirror and her yellow and her adornment. And she's here. She's a African Yoruban goddess of the sweet waters, which are the rivers, the fresh waters. So she's there next to the river and next to the waterfall. One more. Another one. And I love this because last year, I think it was in the 2017 Grammys, Beyonce did just an epic performance. And it was just really, I found very moving. I really felt like she brought the priestess and the divine feminine to that stage. And she was clearly dressing as Oshun. So in the chat, like we did with Aphrodite, I would love for you to put in some words. Like, what do you notice specifically about Oshun? What maybe is different than what you saw in Aphrodite, or what were there any qualities that stand out to you? Glamorous. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Sexy. And Tiffany says confident. Mm-hmm. Divine. Yeah. She seems more alert to me somehow, Natalia says. And Lulu says voluptuous. Mm-hmm. Right. From what Natalia says, I'm feeling like compared to Aphrodite, with Aphrodite, there's a sense of this, like, she's completely in her own world, and also see power from Lulu too. There's incredible softness in her images, and I would say in a lot of ways she represents erotic innocence. And in Aphrodite's stories, there's certainly stories that show her to be a seductress, and even sometimes, because it's written from a patriarchal perspective, even, a level of like manipulation and self-awareness. But her archetype, how she is in the images, has a lot of just soft, innocent. I really feel her just coming to this, like, soften oneself into the experience of pleasure. With Oshun, we start to see her, she's holding a mirror, first of all, and she's looking at herself in the mirror. So that gives us some sense of like, okay, she's aware. She's really aware of what her power is and her magnetism. And because she's not simply naked, but she actually is adorned. We see gold jewelry, and we see, I love how it's like in the first image, the one that's in your book, it's like her breasts are completely exposed, but she's got this incredible like gold thing like all around it to like almost like show them off more, but she's wearing gold, you know. It's like she's kind of bringing some consciousness, some conscious thought and attention into this. I want to see what else is here. Sumi says celebrating the curves, and Natalia, Oshun seems more with us in the world. Aphrodite being in her own world, and extra soft resonates with me. I love them both, but they seem super different in a way, complementary. And my boyfriend did a picture of me that I love. That's very Oshun. Oh yeah, you're. So yeah, she's more. There's a little more of a sense that she's in the world, that she kind of like lives in the world of material stuff. Whereas so many of the images of Aphrodite really just show her kind of emerging out of the water, and there is this sense of like it's existing somewhere else, like almost like in the ethers in a way. And here it's like, no, she's got like things and stuff and adornment and like, she's more in the world. And I would say that one of the ways I differentiate her energy is that when I feel into Aphrodite, for me, it's a lot about erotic innocence. And when I feel into Oshun, it's about sacred seduction. And I say sacred seduction because seduction's gotten a bad rap because we think of it as kind of being like manipulation. Part of that's thanks to the Adam and Eve story, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But that it's like, oh, I know I got this power, and I know I can use this in the world, and that's not a bad thing. I can use my feminine magic consciously and sort of seduce things in the world. And again, seduction, seduce, these are words that we have a negative connotation with. But I say sacred seduction because it's understanding that there can be a non-manipulative, a very clearly sacred, higher purpose way that we use this quality. It's something that doesn't need to be shut down entirely. It's something that wants to be used in a really conscious manner in our lives. And I'll tell you her story so that you start to understand what I'm saying here. Now, her primary story, there's several different Oshun stories, but the one I really love, and it's kind of like her best known story, speaks to, so in the African Yoruban tradition, there are these different orishas, which essentially are like the different gods. And Ogun, who's the god of society, he's the god of kind of production, of kind of keeping everything moving in our society. He gets into a funk. So everything shuts down. It's like none of the factories are working, nothing's being produced, nothing's happening, because the god of this has gotten into a funk. He's in a depression, and he goes off into the woods, and none of the gods, nobody can bring him out of it. And they're like, the world has come to a crashing halt, like nothing is functioning, this is a disaster, you've got to come back. And he's just like, nah. And so Oshun's like, okay, I know what to do here. So she goes off into the forest. And so Oshun, I'll just tell you a little bit about her. So she's the goddess of the rivers. And then you'll notice that the sensual goddesses are always associated with liquid, with water. And she is magic also. She's associated with magic. And she's their Aphrodite. She is the sensual goddess. So she goes off into the forest, and she finds a little clearing of trees near where Ogun is off in his little funk. And she starts to dance. That's what sensual goddesses do. So she starts doing her dance, and she has a magical honey pot that is tied around her waist that she can cast spells out of. So I just want you to take that in. This is one of my all-time, like every goddess ever, like one of my favorite, like metaphorical things is like she has a honey pot around her waist that she can dip her little fingers into this honey, and she can cast spells and make magic from it. And in the people who are practitioners in this tradition, sometimes literally they take honey pots, like a pot of, like a jar of honey, and they put all sorts of things in it and make spells. And but I really like to relate to it as just really understanding that it's, it's our honey pot. It's this thing that we've got there that the magic comes out of. So she goes and she's dancing, and Ogun kind of peeks out between the trees, like, what's going on over there? And she just gets a little bit closer and a little bit closer, and she dips her fingers in her honey pot, and she's dancing, and it gets really close, and she drizzles some of the honey across his lips, and he begins to laugh, and he comes out of his funk. So it's like her dancing, her energy, her seduction, her honey pot is the first time that he feels joy again. It's the first time that he feels this levity, this lightness, and this pleasure in life again. And it's almost like, he was in a desert, and she brought this water, she brought this liquid of joy, of pleasure, and reminded him. And so it's a very simple story. So he tastes the honey, he dances with her, the joy comes back, and he's out of his funk, and he goes back, and everything starts functioning, like the world goes back to functioning. So in this story, what I love about this story is that her seduction saves the world. Like, everything's broken down and nothing can fix it until the sensuality arrives, the pleasure, the dancing, the joy, the magic. And then everything can go back to functioning. And one of the things I love so much about this story is that it is the antithesis of the Adam and Eve story, right? In the Adam and Eve story, Eve, the seduction with the apple, is like the downfall of mankind, and women and seduction is going to have a bad rap. From then on, women are going to suffer pain in childbirth, and like a lot of punishment, and this quality that the feminine has of curiosity, of like tasting the fruit, and then the sharing of it, and the seduction of Adam in that way. This is, considered to be the sort of the worst sin possible. And then here we have this story that is saying, no, this energy saves the world. This is the energy that allows us to function. And this is something that's divine. This is something that's sacred. This is something that's important, that has value for us. And so it's really like, it's like she's a superheroine. Her sensuality is a superpower that's needed. And this story is something that references both something that happens within us internally, that we're both these characters, and we also get to be Oshun for others out in the world. But in the way that it's within ourselves, it's like we have that Ogun within ourselves. That's the taskmaster. That's the one who's like, get those things crossed off your list, like get this done and get that done and be productive. And that part of ourself really can only go so long without the pleasure, without the sensuality, without the dancing, without the joy. And what happens when our Ogun shuts down? Well, a lot, like sometimes it's just, you'll notice, like if you're trying to work, and also sometimes it's like my computer shuts down, like simple things become complicated, or, it's just like things aren't working. There's no flow in the work. And, on a deeper level, it's like we get sick. We get adrenal fatigue. We get depressed. We get in a super funk, and these are all signs that we're out of balance in this way, and that we need her. We need her to come in, that aspect of ourselves, that joy, that dancing, that pleasure. And I can remember one day in New York where, several years ago, having this experience where I was like, oh, I don't remember what it was I was trying to get done. It was something for my business, something for my work. And I just was like having this day, and I think I was outside and like everything was going wrong. It was like there was no flow. It was like, bumping into things, or like, it was just like everything felt bad. Like nothing was flowing, nothing was working. And I was just like, oh, fuck it all. And I went home. And I had this beautiful day bed, and I laid there and I took out chocolate and strawberries and this like travel magazine. And I laid there and I ate the chocolate and I ate the strawberries and I looked at these beautiful images. And I probably spent like 20 minutes just in this pleasure zone. And then after that, went back out into the world, and it was like night and day. It was like suddenly everyone was smiling at me. And like I would call and someone would pick up, and like everything was in flow and everything was magnetized to me and all the good stuff was coming. And I was like, wow, like those 20 minutes of pleasure time made such a difference in my overall productivity in the day, if you want to look at it from that perspective. We need her. And then, we get to like, our world needs us to be her. Our world needs her. And when we give that to ourselves, we get to go out in the world and be her and bring that energy and bring the magic into spaces. So I want to do a little embodiment practice with you all. And I just want to double check that if there's anything that I wanted to touch on that I didn't. Yeah, I think I pretty much touched on it. She is beauty, she's sensuality, she's also like wealth and abundance and magnetism and magic. And I want to see what's happening here. Natalia, can so Natalia is actually, her boyfriend is a really talented photographer, and he's been doing some work with her. What I would love to do is at the end of class, I want to have like a little show and tell time, because I want to see, Jessica's painting. I would love to see your images too. So let's wait and do it at the end of class. We'll just have show and tell. Okay. Oh my goodness, how are we doing for time? We have so much to do tonight. Okay. So let's do a little embodiment. Actually, I'm going to save the embodiment for the end. I'm going to work better this way. Tonight, the other thing I really want to spend some time with you talking about is your pussy. I'll talk to you about that honeypot between your legs. And I feel like that's the other place where we go a little more directly with Oshun is, she's directing us into our sexuality, into the magic that's associated with that. And I was on Monday evening, there's once a month I have a women's, kind of like a leadership gathering with a bunch of women in LA who are leaders and teachers as well. And it was a really interesting evening because there were a couple women there that were really struggling and kind of in a funk and in a depression. And I remember one of the women saying something. She said, she was the one who was like really, really struggling. And she was just like, I hear you women talking about magic and about fairies and your pussy. And she was like, I feel like my pussy has cobwebs in it. And like nothing, I don't feel anything down there. And depression, when you are depressed, you're not going to feel alive down there, but also not feeling alive down there is going to make you depressed. And so it wasn't surprising to me that the person that was struggling the most there with depression was also the most disconnected to her sexuality and to her pleasure. And, the word pussy, we don't have great words in our culture in our language for this part of our body. And I use that word sometimes because it is very direct. It's usually that's the word I kind of used or heard the most growing up. And, vagina is like very clinical. I love that book, Naomi Wolf, highly recommended book. If you're looking for another book, please read Dear Lover. But Vagina by Naomi Wolf is a great one. And just kind of trying to take that word back, make it maybe feel a little more beautiful. But we don't have great words. And the words that we heard growing up, at least pussy, at least sounds kind of cute. Makes you think of like cute little kitty cat, something fuzzy. There's like at least a sweetness to that potentially. But in our culture, a lot of the words that we heard were things like beaver or, and if any are coming to you that you want to type in there, feel free to type some. But like poo nanny, like, the slit, like there's a lot of words that just don't sound good that are used for this part of our body. And it says a lot about what our culture thinks about that part of our body and what we've absorbed about that part of our body. And for example, your brother, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Of course, as soon as we start talking about pussy, men are going to be coming in the door. But for example, in certain Asian texts and tantric texts, they speak about this part of our body as being like the precious pearl, or the jade palace, or the milky heaven. Really poetic, beautiful language, which if you can imagine growing up, hearing words like that spoken about this part of your body, how that might shift how you relate to it and what you think of her. We've basically been shamed and cheapened, made fun of, like really brutally disconnected from this part of our body. And so much of our magic really resides there. And so one of the focuses for you this week is, to continue the pleasure, but specifically to connect to her. Pleasure in the form of sexual pleasure. And even deeper than really the concept of sexual pleasure, it's really just a relationship with her. Just so you can, it's like what I desire for you all is to experience a moment by moment throughout the day conversation and connection happening with her, so that you can really experience knowing your turn on, like knowing your desire. There is so much wisdom in this part of our body. And I can't remember if I shared this last week, but there's a woman I know who calls it the oracle between her legs. And that when we, it's like, ooh, what color car should I get? Let me consult the oracle between my legs. Let me consult, what do I go this way or that way? What decision do I, making a decision around your work? It's like, consult her. And part of this, a big part, maybe one of the biggest parts of really coming into our bodies is coming into a deeper connection with her, a more consistent, like the phone line is open. I'm hearing her moment to moment. And she's your yes. Like, she lets you know what you're a yes to. she can sometimes really let you know what a no is, but that's more the realm of the warrior goddess. And the sensual goddess and this part of our body is this expression of, woo, this turns me on. I feel yes to this. I open around this. I want this inside me. I want to experience this. It's this yes to life experience that she opens us to. And so there is, next to the Oshun page in your book, it says your pussy and you. And there's some journaling questions and some suggestions about how to improve this relationship. Because again, it's like from a really young age, we were told, like, don't touch that part of your body. Don't think about that part of your body. Don't talk about that part of your body. Don't let anyone get in there. It's dangerous. You know, it was like there's so much to cut us off from that. It's like, what are the steps to start to let us open to her and feel her more in the moment to moment way? And so, so I have some suggestions here, and I'll just briefly go over the journaling questions. And I would like for you to do this in your own time this week. If we have a little extra time, we might come back and do a few of them together. But you know, do you find your vagina beautiful? I mean, that's a whole thing there. It's like, you know, I can remember I was a little like not really understanding when I was younger, like, why do men want, like, this didn't look what I thought was supposed to be feminine. It's like, oh, it's kind of hairy and it's funny looking and it's so sometimes that's a whole process to like really start to even be able to conceive of and see her as beautiful and relate to her in that way. And you have predominantly positive feelings when you think of her. It's like when you tune in, is it like warm fuzzies, or is there kind of a discomfort, or is there, you know, is there a lot of trauma or regret or grief, or, you know, something hanging out there that kind of prevents it from being a positive place to connect to? Are you feeling wet, open, juiced up most of the time? Like, what I desire for you is to feel that most of the time, that you feel juicy, that you feel not like you're ready to, you know, drop in, you know, at any given moment, but, you know, kind of like that. It's not, I know that when I get very disconnected to her, there's a way that this part of my body, you know, it can just sort of feel more tense and dry and kind of like it's just not very alive. The more that we drop in and we're breathing from there, and the Shakti breathing will be really helping with this, the more that that connection is open, the more easily she feels like in that vibrant state, you know, and easy to connect with. You know, do you pleasure yourself regularly? Like really feeling into what your relationship is with self-pleasure. And then, and if you are having regular intimacy with a partner, does your, and yoni, by the way, is another word that I use, which is a more sacred word, and that's a Sanskrit word for this part of our body. So sometimes I'll use that interchangeably. But does your yoni receive focused pleasure and attention? Is your partner really focusing on that area? Do you like sex? You know, is it something that's really enjoyable for you? You know, do you easily orgasm? How deep and fulfilling are your orgasms? One thing that is really important to feel into is, how is your menstrual cycle? Do you enjoy it, or is it painful? Do you experience PMS? Like, because that's a whole other thing that's happening in this part of our body outside of the sex. It's just like the menstruation. And generally when we're not activated in this part of our body and we're disconnected, we'll have a more painful menstrual cycle as well. Feeling into contraception. I mean, there's a whole conversation that we can have there. And I really welcome and invite these conversations to take place in our private Facebook group too. And I know that, you know, concerns around Facebook privacy are real as well. So there may be certain things that you don't want to touch on there, and that's okay. I've connected you all with your buddies now, and I encourage you to talk about some of this with your buddies, like go through some of these questions with your buddies. But the contraception is a big piece. And when you're taking hormonal contraception, there is a disconnect that can happen between some of that really direct connection between yourself and your sexual organs. And then, really just asking yourself where you're at as far as being at peace with your sexual history. Or is there unresolved trauma or abuse still present inside your vagina? I would say that for most women, there's some level of of trauma there, in the sense that for many of us, so what I've learned doing this work is that, far too many women have been physically, sexually abused, many more women than I think people realize. And although I think we're starting to become more aware as a culture at this point, but beyond that, even if you haven't directly been a victim of direct sexual abuse, sometimes we have been allowed ourselves to, I'll say it this way, we sometimes allow ourselves to have sex when we're not actually ready for it. And that creates a little bit of a trauma there. It disrupts the relationship, because when she is ready, she is wet, she is open, she's like literally like kind of almost like begging for it, like calling in a lover. And most women, when we were young, didn't really have a really proper type of sex education to understand what was supposed to happen. And many women that I've worked with have found sex not that pleasurable because they haven't been properly primed. They weren't really ready. And too many times we just sort of went ahead and then found sometimes like later we'd get into a deeper pleasure. But if we're not really ready and we go into having sex, it's painful, and she feels like not listened to, that part of our body, that sensitive aspect of ourselves. And far too many men also didn't have the proper education to really understand what it looks and feels like when a woman is really ready. And so that kind of thing can occur. That's not a rape, but in some ways can leave some trauma there. So I invite you just to start to explore in where there may be some disconnect between yourself and this part of your body, or where there are some things you're holding on to. Now, for anyone that's on here that may have serious trauma, you can reach out to me and I can help to connect you to some resources that would be something deeper than what we're going to do in this class, if that's needed. For most of you, there are ways that you can kind of work through more minor type of traumas that you might be experiencing. And it's really just about opening up and starting a conversation with her and reconnecting to her. And so one of the practices that I'm going to have you do is to really write to her, to kind of like journal with her and just say, after you've gone through these questions and you realize that there may have been ways that you weren't listening to her, or that you hurt her in some way, or anything like that, that you can just start to open up and say like, hey, I'm here, I'm listening, I want to be friends, I want to hear you, I apologize for that, I'm open now, like just to start to open up those pathways. And some other suggestions I have here to improve your relationship is, one, you can create a ritual to clear her energy and release old traumas and abuse. So, yoni steaming is something that people sometimes do now. And like you could do a yoni steam, or you could create a bath with like herbs that are used for yoni steaming, or you could just create any kind of a bath, or a ritual process where you're saying, I'm cleansing, or I'm releasing something. I really, encourage you to call forth that inner wisdom, that priestess within, that can kind of conjure up a ritual for yourself that would feel appropriate. Sometimes it's using water, sometimes it's using fire. saging. And then this number 2 is what I just talked about, like writing a letter, increasing your connection to her through more communication. Write a poem, be creative, like bring creativity there. It's like just starting to like really feel into her, draw a picture of her or paint a painting of her or for her, like I feel like it would be great some night to like do pussy art where, you've got glitter and like different colors of paint and all sorts of things. And, Jessica's been on this like artistic bent right now, maybe have some pussy art with ladies in Charleston, but it's like bringing some creativity, like maybe your pussy's angry, and it's like, and you can like kind of express and like feel and connect to her that way. Or maybe she's just like squirting like juice everywhere and like that wants to come out. And we're all different, but it's like finding whatever form of expression is going to allow you to feel more connected to her. So it could be through words, it could be through, painting, it could be through dancing, it could be through singing. It's like just connecting with her. It's like, oh, what if I sing a song completely from my pussy? Well, how would that sound? What if I did a dance from my pussy and I like did the pussy dance, like whatever. Maybe Faye, go do that in your office this week, and before everyone comes. But it's like just getting in there in a creative way, because that's often how we actually get to hear what's really going on. Sometimes when we're just in the mind and we're like, okay, what's happening? Like she doesn't want to talk. But sometimes like through creative expression, we get really more connected to what's actually happening. Open your legs under the stars or a full moon. Allow her to be bathed by the cosmic light. That's something that I love to do, like under a full moon. Sometimes if it's coming in my window, I just lay there and like kind of spread my legs and let that moon come in. I mean, if you live somewhere, you could go in a field and do that. Or, under the stars, like just getting that cosmic connection. Increasing self-pleasure time. Obviously, and also I'm going to send you something this week, which is how to give yourself a yoni massage, which is different than just like going for like self-pleasure to get an orgasm. We tend to be very goal-oriented. And the whole thing here with her is that we want to take the pressure off for there to be any outcome or goal that we're moving towards, right? We're doing things that don't have a purpose. So doing yoni massage and connecting to her without this expectation of a result is one way to like really open up that connection. It's like, oh, I just want to communicate with you. I just want to touch you. I want to feel you. And something I really recommend as well. So make time for self-pleasure, also with your partner, and you could invite in your time with your partner, extra attention for her. And, really it's like, this is my pussy week in my course. So like, this is, like, invite in worship of her from your partner. Like, how would it be for you to just completely worship, like it's all about her tonight, that kind of thing. And then this is something as well, which is for those of you that are doing self-pleasure, I really, really, really invite you, pussy week. Using your hand. Sorry, I like get caught up in the chat sometimes. Like, wait, what's going on over here? Emily has something really fun to say too, that she thinks of it as an insult for weak men, right? Hello, exactly. It's like this part of our body has been so denigrated. Even this word that's like kind of cute and sweet has become like an insult or equivalent with being weak. Don't be a pussy. But so for self-pleasure, using your fingers, using your skin to skin contact, and, letting the vibrator have a little rest. There's something so special about becoming sensitized to your own flesh-to-flesh contact, because it allows you to be both receiving and giving at the same time. And there is a circuit that comes. It's like when you're touching yourself, like with your own skin, there's a circuit. And when you're using something that's like battery operated and plastic, and like that circuit is broken. So I really recommend just time of like touching, feeling what does she feel like under your fingers, like really spending time with that. Dab a little pussy juice behind the ear like perfume. Yes. Yes. And thinking of like pussy juice too, it's like we're also told like our pussy smells, we've got to douche it, and it's like, no, that's like a magic perfume that's coming out of there. And then number 9, use a healing crystal wand for self-pleasure and internal healing work. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I have one right here. Let me grab it. Hold on. We have instead, so I say use your fingers, and I definitely want you to experiment with that if that's not something you normally do. But if you're going to use something, rather than use these like plastic rubbery things, I want you to use something like this, which is crystal. This is rose quartz, which is, so when you use something that is an organic healing material like this, you're not just giving yourself pleasure, but it also it's like deeply healing. It magnifies. It's like all the energy that's in the crystal wand. And I can give you some resources for those as well, for some different companies where you can buy that. And then the final thing I put here is name or rename your vagina. And so as I was saying before, we have all these words that we have these negative associations with, and then there's, these, Asian poems and like from the Kama Sutra and the Tantric poetry, where we hear these beautiful, beautiful phrases. I want to see if I have a couple listed here. Yeah, the Jade Gate, the Fountain of Nectar, the Sea of Creation, the Portal to Infinity, the Cosmic Gateway, all of these beautiful, beautiful words. So I would love for you, as you're spending time getting connected to her, maybe ask her what she wants to be called. Maybe there's a special name that wants to come forward, or a special way that you want to relate to her, as like a rose garden. This beautiful, fragrant rose. That's one that I love to use with her. Yeah, I love roses. And but it's like just really feeling into what, like if there's a word or a name that she desires to be called by, and how that can start to shift your relationship with that part of your body and make it something that feels poetic and sacred. And imagine if your lover related to you in that way, right? It's really elevating and understanding that she's not just this, so many, like the word vagina, I can't now remember the exact translation, but like it's basically like Latin for like the sheath of a sword. It's like a lot of the words that are used for this part of our body like reference that it's like a thing just for the cock to go into, like to hold the penis. Like the penis is the reference point, and this is the thing that's going to hold it. And what we're doing here is really recognizing that this part of our body really is magical and sacred. And in the 12 weeks that we're going to do here, where we kind of skim to a certain level this material, and there's always so much more depth to go into, but literally, you have within yourself, in this part of your body, the capacity for deep spiritual initiation. And that's what's referenced in this kind of language, is understanding that what an honor it is to be invited into this space within a woman that is so profoundly magical, spiritual, and potentially awakening for somebody. That union has the potential really for deep spiritual awakening for both parties, but really understanding that within this part of our body, in the deeper recesses, we'll touch on some of the womb work in this course as well, because really, in the deeper aspect of the yoni, we're going into the womb itself, that there's incredible wisdom. There's incredible, it's a portal really to the cosmos. And yeah, so I'll just leave it at that for now, but that there's just incredible reverence that this part of our body really wants. And there was a time a couple of years ago where I experienced a real yoni awakening, and it was just, different moments, there's different aspects that come through and really speak through me and communicate. But I had this experience of awakening to the great cosmic yoni. And it was like, oh, holy wow. She was speaking to me, I could feel her. And it was like she was holding the energy of all yonis, of all women. And I could feel the incredible amount of pain and suffering that was there. And the incredible pain that she has around how the abuse that's happening, and the shame. And I also could feel this incredible love that was just it was just this heart literally within the yoni herself. And the power, the strength, the love that's there. This is something that we can tap into. There's deeper and deeper levels with this work. So I just want to encourage you this week to just start to open up that portal. And in that process of connecting with her and the renaming is a sense of just really bringing reverence for the depth of what's possible there. And really the depth of what this oracle is that's between our legs. So, on the light, fun way, it's like, oh, this is what turns me on. This is what feels good. Let me be led by that in my life. The deeper level, it's like there is spiritual awakening that's happening there. There's deep guidance and wisdom that comes. So and I have a visualization in here as well that I invite you to do this week, which is to actually go inside your yoni, to go into a meditative space and just hear her. Another way to really deepen the connection. What I would like to do right now is to do some embodiment work, and to do this really calling in Oshun and also connecting to the yoni herself. And so go ahead, I want you to get in a comfy space and a seated position for now. We're going to start with Shakti breathing and closing your eyes. So finding yourself either with a cross-legged seated position or upright with your feet flat on the ground. And you can place your hands on your lap or on your knees or legs. And beginning to drop that cord of connection. And as you do that, also just softening your butt, softening your thighs, and feeling the softness in the sexual organs, and locating the perineum, and feeling that cord drop. All the way down to Mama Earth, into her core, and wrapping itself around. And we'll begin doing some of the Shakti breathing. Now that that cord is connected, we're going to inhale in through the nose, holding, and exhaling out through the mouth. Inhaling in through the nose, holding, and exhaling. Inhaling in through the nose and in through the sexual center. holding, pausing, and exhaling. Inhaling, holding, exhaling. Inhaling, holding, and exhaling. One more round. Inhaling deep in through that cord. Holding, exhaling. Pausing with the eyes closed. And preparing to do the pelvic rocking. Remember, with the pelvic rocking, we inhale forward and we exhale back. We're really letting the pelvis guide, beginning together. Inhaling, exhaling. And this is where you bring in a bit of that fire. Finding your own rhythm, really letting your pelvis guide. And as you're doing this, maybe you're making that connection, like, okay, pussy, you guide this. I'm letting go of the reins, this wild horse, this wild animalistic primal part of myself, I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna let you guide. And when you eventually find your climax with that energy, taking your time and going your own rhythm, absolutely no rush. When you eventually do, you can come to stillness in your own time. Go as long and as hard and as fast or as slow as you desire. And once you come to that stillness, I want you to start to breathe in and see if you can feel some of that magic, some of that Oshun honeypot starting to wake up. And realize, as I said at the top of the call, that this energy that we're bringing in is the goddess herself. It is the divine feminine. And inviting her presence this evening as Oshun, as this sacred, seductive, pussy-centric goddess, pleasure-oriented, and allowing her to move through your body. She wants to dance. The sensual goddess in Oshun, she's a dancer. And her dance is a way of awakening your body, of melting away the armor, melting away all the places that you've been stiffening and contracting in that goal-oriented focus. She dissolves. So maybe, and there's no right or wrong way to move right now. It's all about how she wants to move. And if it feels good, then you're doing it right. But maybe there's hip circles happening. Maybe there's undulation to the spine. See if you can really experience Oshun kind of like taking over your body. This golden goddess nectar, this love light, this joy potion, animating your body. And now what I would love for you to do is just imagine you can dip into your honey pot and take some of this nectar, some of this etheric honey, this joy potion, and like we did last week, maybe just rub a little on your body. Just imagine you're smearing this etheric honey over your body, bathing yourself in it, just pleasure nectar. Really staying within your own self right now. Your eyes are closed. Maybe you're feeling your hips, you're feeling your thighs. And what I invite, if it feels good to you, is the possibility of even bringing this up to standing. So you can spread that honey over even more parts of your body. Maybe feeling yourself as Oshun, dancing for Ogun in that circle of trees in the forest, in that clearing. Dipping in, maybe tasting the honey over your lips. You want me like the others do. They stare at me while I stare at you. You want me like the others do. Really letting your dance be a dance for your own pleasure, just feeling your own body. Remember dipping back in the honey pot, spreading that honey. It's true, I crave you. And I'm going to invite everyone, if you're standing, you come back down to sitting. And I want to do one final practice to seal this in. I want you to take one hand and place it over your sex, over your yoni area. And then I want you to take the other hand and place it over that. And I want you just to take in a breath, feeling the contact between your hands and this part of your body. And I want you to say silently to yourself, or very quietly to yourself, yes. And then again, yes. And you can start, you're all actually on mute right now, so you can start to say it a little bit audibly. Yes. 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 Yes, 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 yes. And just feel that yes resonating through your body. And now taking one hand and placing it over the sex area, or keeping one hand there and taking the other hand and placing it over the heart. And feeling that connection between the heart and the yoni. Sending a little bit of energy back and forth, harmonizing them. And I want you to see this golden force field of energy that's all around you. That your pleasure, your honey pot, your yes has created this beautiful golden force field of energy that is emanating all around you. And it magnetizes to you, and it also protects. It keeps out anything that you don't want in, and it attracts to you the things that you do want in. It's almost like this etheric honey is completely wrapped itself all around you. You're dripping in it, but it's not like sticky. It's just because it's etheric honey. It's just like this golden elixir, this golden energy that is emanating from you. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. So beauties, beauties, beauties. So yes is like the mantra of the sensual goddess. She's so connected to everything that she is a yes to. Yes to life, yes to pleasure, yes to the moment, yes to joy. She helps you really know what your yes is. So this week, the homework is to do this work with the proceduraling, to bring Oshun into your practice, into your morning practice. And really, it's just like feel yourself as Oshun, like walking into a room as Oshun, just kind of letting yourself like emanate and feel into how she wants to move through you. And the desire portion, I don't think we covered last week. There's actually 2 pages just before Oshun in your manual. And I write here about how sometimes we get really disconnected to our desire. And sometimes we even have a bad association with the word desire. And so there's some space here for you to journal about your relationship to just desire in general and your own desire. And then there's a list, a desire list. So a place for you to actually list out things that you really desire. And you might surprise yourself. Sometimes I'm like, I do that and I'm like, I didn't even know I desired that. Like, wow. And what I would love for you to do is really do a practice similar to what we just did, and placing your hands over this part of your body and feeling into your yes and feeling into her. It's like she's like the center of desire, and like consult with her. What do I desire? And really let your desire list emanate from that space. And give yourself permission to have desires. Ooh, it's kind of like naughty almost, like we're not supposed to desire anything. And let yourself kind of bathe in your desire and draw your desires to you. I really recommend a lot of dancing. I mean, just like hearing the ladies that have been dancing share about that, like really encourage you to bring that in. So there's a lot of juicy pieces for you to work with this week. I'm gonna send you some more just resources and things like that as well. Like I said, I'm gonna send you a PDF about the yoni massage. I'll send you some resources for yoni crystals if you're interested in that. I will also be sending you a few other things as well. And I know I said we would do a show and tell at the end, but what I'm thinking would probably be better, just because we're already over time, is for Jess and for Natalia, for you to share those images, if you wouldn't mind, on the Facebook group. Yeah? Because then we can really take it in. And I would love just to open up the chat for any questions or comments anyone has about what we just did or anything we talked about today before we close out. I'll hold out for a moment to see if anyone has something that they want to type in, and then otherwise we'll close out for tonight. How are you ladies feeling? See a thumbs up? Yeah. Good, good. All right. I'm not seeing anything new coming up. I see that Lulu said rose quartz. Oh, where'd it go? Heals the cellular structure. Yeah, it's incredibly healing. Beautiful. If you have more information that you want to share about that, please do in the Facebook group. Smells and textures, but I love the name Milky Heaven. That really resonated with me. Yeah. Thanks, Lulu. And juicy. Natalia feels juicy. Good, good. All right, ladies. Have a juicy week. And there's one last just logistical thing I wanted to share, which is that if you are interested in doing some of the private sessions, which a few of you are doing, that's for those of you that are in the course, you got a very special package where you can add that on for a much better price than what it would normally be. Normally my private sessions right now are $300 per private session, but if you wanted to get a package of 4 of them to kind of accompany you along as you're doing the course, the price for that is $888, and you get the 4 private sessions plus you get a bunch of juicy things that are going to be coming in the mail to you. Those packages, for those of you that already signed up for that, we're just being sent out today, and there's like creams and crystals and breast massage oils and candles and teas and all sorts of really cool stuff and journals. And there'll be things coming along with the theme of whatever goddesses we're working with that you'll be getting in these packages. So that's part of the upgrade. And then also, in addition to the 4 sessions, while we're doing the course, you also will have one check-in with me after the course is ended. And that's a 40-minute session where we'll just drop in and see like if everything's, if you're continuing to do the work. And I wanted to let you know as well that if you're concerned that you might not get the 4 sessions in while we're doing the course, but you're interested in doing them, the sessions are good for an entire year. You wouldn't have to fit them in while we're doing the course. And also, if you are concerned about the financial part, you can also do a payment plan. So I just want to let you know that that's all available, and that is open up until next week. So reach out and let me know if you have questions about that or you're interested in doing that. And then otherwise, let's go ahead and close for this evening. And I invite you to go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to unmute everyone so we can hear our voices as we do one ma chant together to close out. All right, and let's do this ma chant like the voice of your pussy. Like tune in and let her speak through you. So inhaling, All right, beautiful women, have an amazing, juicy, pleasure-filled week. Reach out if you need anything, and share on the Facebook group. I love seeing all your shares there, your pictures and I am statements. So beautiful. Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Good night.
Night.
Night, Bunny.